Hi, cyber friends. This is Deidre Diamond from CyberSN, and I am excited to talk to you about the question that I get asked the most: the best ways to attract, hire, and retain talent. I did the quotations of best because you can clearly tell that I'm being facetious. There is one way, and only one way. There are no ways. And we're going to talk about that today. So it's a pleasure. And let's start by looking at statistics. I really think that in order to talk about problems we're solving, the first thing we should do is get really in tune with what's the problem? What's the truth? What are the facts? And here's the truth. It's right in front of us on the screen here. The unemployment rate for cybersecurity professionals is at 0. I've seen statistics recently that say negative 4.5%. That's pretty intense considering that 73% of the folks that we have polled also have interest in leaving the jobs that they're currently at. So we've got 0% unemployment, maybe a lot less. We've got 73% of professionals willing to speak about leaving their organization. And we think that there's ways or best ways? No, no, no. There's one way, and it's one culture, and we're going to talk about it. And at the same time, I really hope that people understand this is a national security issue. It is from the perspective of being able to protect ourselves as the United States of America, to be able to protect ourselves as individuals. And this is also a problem as it pertains to the psychology of the workforce of cyber professionals in terms of happiness. And so this is very, very serious. I will argue that it's much more serious than any tech talk. This is the state of society within the cyber staffing or cyber profession, if you will, excuse me, business. So let's look at what's going on. Because if we want to talk about how we're going to attract people, then let's start with, again, the problem. And the problem is why people are leaving. The problem is retention. When we can focus on retention, we will have the correct hiring. So look at these numbers. 45% of folks leaving their cyber careers because of the lack of opportunities for advancement. 45%. That's almost half. So that's basically, you could look around your cyber team and say, okay, every other person here is concerned about whether or not there's advancement. That's a big problem considering technologists and cyber professionals are highly intellectual folks, which means the brain needs to be challenged. That's a massive, massive problem. So if I'm thinking about how I'm going to hire folks and retain them, I'm going to take that statistic really seriously, and I do. And I have had the pleasure to work for the same founders for 3 organizations in technology, in cyber, and so I know that it's possible, which is where my content comes from. In case you didn't get to see my bio, that's a big piece of why I get to speak about this. Never mind the fact that I've created my own organizations to have the right cultures. So let's look at this second statistic, which is every other person that is in your cyber team is unsatisfied with leadership. Holy cow. So we've got advancement, questions and concerns in our cyber staff. And then we've got not particularly loving our leadership, both at 45 and 41%. Do we really even need to go into the other 36%, that want to, they're unsatisfied with their entire work culture, or the 36% that wants more challenging work? I mean, to me, they sort of fall under the other two. And so, of course, people are unsatisfied with their rewards. They're unsatisfied with their state of work being. So we've got big problems. I would definitely not say that they're only in the cyberspace or the tech space. I think this is a human problem. And as a sociologist, somebody who studied criminal justice heavily and then found it boring and instead decided to spend my time in tech, I can tell you that pretty sure that when we look at all of these things and we do the opposite of them, we create cultures that people are at their workforce because of these things as a positive, you're going to find that people stick around and a lot of cool production happens and a lot more money is made, believe it or not. So let's talk about this. I have thought a lot and spent a lot of time on what was it that worked. Why did I and many others and people that thousands of folks that came into our culture stick around and continue to build business with us. And I put a lot of time into this because people started asking me as I got older in my career and certainly had the resume and the success. And I am confident to say that these are the 7 things. I didn't look for 7. I didn't look for any certain number. It just happened that it's lucky 7. So when I go to Vegas, I'll certainly make sure to bet on 7. These are the things that I walked into as a 21-year-old, walking into tech services, into staffing companies like Oracle and Foundstone and Match.com, and my goodness, the list goes on. And by the time I was 5 years in the business, I had 400 recruiters working underneath me and training and developing people all around this country, doing technical staffing and building companies, and then building Rapid7, and then continuing on my path. These are the things that we brought to the game. And as somebody that's staffed companies forever, I can tell you that the attrition falls under one of these 7 things, or combinations of these 7 things. So when I say there's one thing, I look at this as the silver bullet, the combination. This is the formula. You've got, just like in school, you've got the opportunity to get a grade of a B, maybe a C, and better, to have some resemblance of an organization. And if you want to really crush it and have electric production and people that love their jobs and that stick around, then you need to nail all of these things. And that means 90 percentiles and higher. And so I often find myself that I'm talking about these things and people ask me to dive into these more. And so I thought I'd cover some of the major questions that I hear, or the common questions that I hear. So let's start with, to feel valued. These 7 things are in no order because it isn't about one of them, it's about all of them together. So first, understand that. Number 2 is, how do you know if somebody feels valued? People ask me this all the time. And I say, well, first thing is you can ask them. It's usually the best way to get the answer to a question is to ask the source. That being said, I really believe the second thing is, do people smile in your organization? How much smiling goes on? When people feel valued, they smile. When people are enjoying, which is, it's hard to enjoy something if one doesn't feel valued. It's in our common core. So to me, this is a big judgment. How much smiling goes on in your environment? If there isn't smiling going on in your environment to the 80%, the 90% and higher, you're probably got retention challenges. I would argue that you do. I'd probably bet in Vegas. In fact, I would bet in Vegas that you do have retention challenges. Because at the end of the day, all the old sayings that we heard when we were kids are true. You attract more bees with honey. And if you want people around, well, make them smile, make them feel good, help them feel valued. Now, that's what I just talked about is, can you tell? How do I know if somebody feels valued? So that not how do you make sure they feel valued? Those are 2 different questions. That I just answered, how do you know? The rest of these things that I'm going to talk to you about, or what an environment needs, is how to make sure they feel valued. So for instance, measurable agreements of roles and responsibilities, it's the #1 breakdown in an organization. #1. Whenever I'm finding myself dealing with a breakdown in our organizations, and whether you're 80 or 90%, you're still going to have some breakdowns. I always find that the source is that there wasn't a measurable agreement. There wasn't both parties that made the agreement, or the parties that made the agreement, there was really no way of telling who dropped the ball because it wasn't measurable. And so better, faster, cheaper, higher, those aren't measurable. So I find that certainly within our own organizations and also within staffing for other organizations, and I see why people are leaving their companies, and I've just lived, eat, and breathed this my entire career, it's mainly because one person thought they had an agreement that the other person didn't think they had. And right there, the breakdown, the hurt feelings, the loss of time before anybody even says anything, all the sort of, getting up to the place of saying something when it's too late is a massive loss of productivity. It almost always relates into somebody's leaving. And in my opinion, and I know a lot of people share this, we can stop this madness by having measurable agreements. And even as technology companies where we're visionary and we're creating software, and I'm doing the same thing right now myself, we can take the time to be measurable. And if we don't, then I say, that's okay. Sometimes as CEO, currently in my first year of our startup, I couldn't make measurable goals because I didn't really know. And when sort of stuff hit the fan and people started to want to point fingers at each other on certain stuff, I stepped in and said, no, 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 we're not pointing fingers at anybody. We didn't have a measurable goal. And that's my job because we're, at that time, 12 people. It's still my job. So I really believe that if leadership can take responsibility for either having managed, measurable agreements or not, and understanding the impact of the business, and then learn how to manage those agreements, which is the second piece of measurable agreements, is how do you manage them? Because one day we can make a measurable agreement, and then the next 2 weeks later, maybe even 2 months, we realize, oh my gosh, that measurable agreement, or that measurable, agreement that I made, I'm not going to hit that. I can't hit that. There's been information that's come to, that I've now gained that says I can't do that. And so the responsible thing is to ring the bell right now. The minute one hears, understands that within their psyche. Most humans don't. And so this is why the cultures must teach that it's okay, ring the bell, don't wait, please ring the bell, and walk us through what you just learned. And don't be afraid to say that something that you said could be done can't be done. Because it's in that fear that corporations lose time, money, and personnel, because people are too afraid to say something. So making measurable agreements, managing measurable agreements, to me, this is the #1 solution to creating a lack of drama and a lack of breakdown. And that is a big piece to having environments where you can hire and retain talent. So let's move on to the next piece of this. So we can have measurable agreements and we can manage them quite well. However, if we're not positive and really come from a perspective of wanting to have a productive conversation, to really have win-win in the conversation, then people are still going to leave, because you're talking about a small percentage of the population that can do a job that we need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of more people of, so they can pick and choose and they will leave. And I thought this statistic would be fun to put up there. There's all kinds of statistics we can put under this category, but 96% of women and 92% of men said that communication skills are the #1 attribute for success in cybersecurity. And so, well, what are communication skills? Communication skills are when people have a positive experience, that's productive. That's the kind of communication skills we're talking about here. We're certainly not talking about, strictly written skills. However, that's a big piece of this. So it's the entire, verbal, written, body language, all being a positive, productive experience is what we need in business today, because business today is a service. It's, gone are the days that we're, sort of in the minds, at least in the masses of humans in tech. It's a service industry. It's talking more than not. And talking, whether that be, again, verbal, written, or body language. So this is something that we must take very seriously. In fact, I take it so seriously that I have created courses for cyber professionals that both ISC Squared and SANS have accredited for credits. Because if we don't, we can't have the cultures that we need to have. And again, I really view this as national security, individual security, and the ability to have a psychology in the workforce that's fun. So this is really important. Get the training. Let's not just keep training on technology. Let's train on, communication skills, soft skills, how to have a conversation where the person and other folks aren't going to get what they want. However, they still leave the conversation, the meeting, feeling positive. how does one do that? That is an art. It's a skill. And it's not something you just go to a classroom and learn. You go to a classroom, you learn it, and you practice it. And then you go back to the classroom, you learn it, and you practice it. This is certainly what I've done my whole career, and I'm so excited to be offering it to the tech community as a large, because it's game changing. So I hope to see you there. All right, let's move on to the next one here. A career path. So we saw this sort of in the first statistic of 46% of folks are concerned about advancement. Again, cyber professionals, the most intelligent folks on the planet, technologists. It's sort of the cream of the crop. You could have been a doctor. Doctors could have been technologists. I mean, there's that brain. And so, of course, they want advancement. Of course, they want to know how to move up and what it takes and see a path. I mean, that's all I wanted. In fact, is somebody to show me the way in terms of when I thought about my future. Of course, I wanted all the other things that are in this, presentation. However, a clear path was just critical. And so what I would say to you all today is that if you don't have a career plan for your team, get one. And if you find yourself saying, well, I don't really have one, meaning like, I know that I can get somebody from here to here, and then I don't think I can get them past that second stop that I just got them to. Well, that's okay. It's okay. What's not okay is not talking about that. Because it's the not talking about it that leaves humans, and we run rapid in our brains and we start thinking all these things, and that those thoughts are distracting, and they keep people from focusing. So have the conversation, talk about what you do know, and talk about the things you'd like to figure out. And hey, to have 2 years of a great program for somebody to advance their skill set and work in a great place is a wonderful thing. Don't shy away from it. Don't be afraid that you don't have the 10-year plan or the 15-year plan or the 5-year plan. Talk about it, and then maybe you can create it. If you do have those plans, you want to map them out, you want to sell it. That's a competitive edge. To be able to advance people, to keep their skills going, to keep their brains challenged. Boredom is like when it's all over. So let's not create boredom in our workforces. When we do, we have trouble hiring and retaining. And by no means do I contest that any of this is easy. At the same time, I don't believe that anybody listening to this isn't highly intelligent. So it's sort of an oxymoron to say it isn't easy when you're talking to the most intelligent people. My point is, we can put people on the moon. We can do this. There's no question in my mind. Let's look at this. So, the career path is a conversation, an idea, a concept, a plan. The training is the here and the now and the today, and you're committed and you're doing it and you're giving it to them right now, every day, consistently. And you must figure that out. You must have programs. And those programs are technical, and those programs need to be non-technical. And this is the fun stuff. So if you don't have the answers, enjoy getting them, creating them. This is the stuff that is the easy stuff, in my opinion. So everybody wants consistent training. Everybody wants to always be learning. So think about, what you've got to offer. What can you offer? How can you create this? And folks will keep coming back. All right, wage equality. This is a biggie. I used this statistic here because it's one that's sort of been front and center in society today, that we know that women aren't paid more. And I think the interesting thing about this topic isn't so much that, in my opinion, I haven't seen that people purposely go out and say, oh, it's a woman, I can't wait to pay her less. That's not what happens. What happens is, depending on how, most of the time women get started in the business in a different capacity. And so when they're starting at lower jobs and lower salaries. And what's happened in society, and I know this from running a staffing agency, is that companies decide what to offer somebody, and the number one thing they look at is what they're currently making. Right or wrong, that's what's been going on forever. And so if somebody starts at 60 and somebody starts at 70, based on wherever they started, which is most likely not a cyber role, especially if it's a woman. And that's only because we didn't sell that to children, young ladies. Again, nothing intentional in my opinion, necessarily. Anyhow, if somebody starts at 60 and somebody else starts at 70, well then, of course, if one of the number one things we look at is what they're making, they're going to constantly be behind. So this has been an interesting phenomenon that people have sort of started to understand, so much so, I can tell you in Massachusetts, there was legislation passed this year that goes into effect in 2018 that says you can no longer ask people what they're currently making. So how is that going to work? I don't know. When I heard 2018, I thought, oh God, I put it in my calendar. There's a point in the day where I'm going to look at that and figure out what the heck that means for us all. However, the intent is to stop the sort of somebody making less because they started at a lesser number years and years and years and years ago in their career. And making it more about, are you doing the same job? And if you are doing the same job, then you ought to make the same pay. That is really important. Now let me tell you where this shows up in terms of the concept of hiring and retaining. So I would say in my career, I give it about a 20% of the time. So 20% of your attrition could be contributed to somebody finds out what somebody else is making on the team. So 20% of the time, a candidate, a job seeker, walks into one of our offices and says, I'm leaving because I found out that so-and-so, who I work with, is making 90 and I'm making 80. Then that really makes me mad. It really makes me mad that the people that I work for don't value me enough, hence this person's no longer smiling, by the way. In fact, they're frowning. But doesn't value me enough to equally pay me for the work that somebody else is doing next to me. This is going to get worse and worse if we don't correct it. However, 20% is quite a bit. Now, I would venture to guess that all of you think, well, people aren't supposed to talk about what each other makes. It's grounds for termination. There's lots of things that are grounds for termination that people talk about. So, don't bank on that. Instead, think about paying people equally for their work. Like, avoid the problem. Why even have it? Why even have the risk, cyber friends, who we all now live in this world of risk? Why have it? We don't need it. It's not necessary. It comes out to low dollars. All right, number seven. This one is what people have called bottled lightning for our environments. When kindness is in a workforce and respect is in a workforce, the vibe in the workforce is electric. It's electric. You'll feel it. You'll feel people's love for each other. You'll feel people's desire to please. You'll feel the energy. Energy has a feeling. Actually, when energies are high, you can feel it in a room. Physically feel it. This is a fact. And I know you guys are all binary geniuses, so you know what I'm talking about. And yet, does your environment have it? Because if it doesn't have it, I mean, people are going to leave if they can find it somewhere else. They're going to leave. So this is critical. And people say, well, how did you create these environments that are electric? Well, one, it's all seven of these things together. Two, it's how we speak to each other. So, we have rules. You say good morning. You say good night when you're leaving and going. You smile when you walk by somebody. You say hello in the hallways. You start off a call with, hi, how are you? And actually mean it. You're interested and interesting, or you're not a part of the team. It's a skill that we all need, because when it's in the environment, when that electric positive energy is there, my gosh, innovation goes through the roof because people feel comfortable. People feel like they can be themselves. People feel like they can say something and somebody's not going to beat them up or attack them or bully them. And when that happens, not only is innovation incredible, I can tell you as somebody who runs and leads sales armies, never mind technology armies, lots of money gets made. Because who doesn't want to do business with a company who's electric, and when the people that they speak to in the process of buying or in the process of being serviced are positive and excited about their work and where they work and the people that work there. That's that we all want to hear that. Why? A, it feels good. Just our sort of our biology likes it. And then our business brain says, oh, well, geez, if these people are happy, chances are our business agreement's probably going to be more successful or a higher rate of successability possibilities, right? Because again, generally happy people don't leave. And what's the number one business risk in partnering with another company? That the people that you're partnering with leave, So I laugh only because I've just been seeing this for 23 years, working around all you brilliant technologists. And I'd like the madness to stop. And I certainly know that all of you would. So I'm really hoping that by me getting out and speaking and sharing and bringing the content into a common language and a formula that's simple yet sophisticated, we can together solve this problem, because life's too short. Life's just too short, bottom line. And if this isn't the American dream, our jobs, then what is? So to me, it's happiness now, right now. And we can do it. We can definitely do it. Well, it might be 30 minutes. Oh, it says 28. So I'm going to sign off. I love you guys. I love all my cyber friends, guys, gals. It's not funny to say guys. Anyhow, see you later. Bye.